Can any of the participants hear us? If you can, just put in a question in the question area. Just tell us where you're dialing in from today.
Regarding participants, the participants can put their questions here in the chat, and we will be reading it out during the session. Any additional questions will be collected after the session and emailed directly with the answers to the participants.
Joseph, fantastic. You're dialing in from Rhode Island. Great. Where's everybody else coming in from?
I can't see the locations, but I can see that.
No, we got a response from one in the question area. I'll just keep an eye on that as we go. If you have questions, let's warm up on the audience side here. You can hear us. Hopefully the sound is coming through well. Just use the Q&A area. Let's get used to that. Tell us where you're dialing in from today. Thank you, Joseph. Fantastic. Okay, welcome. Is the sound coming through well today for people who are participating? Use the chat or use the Q&A area. Thank you, Meshel from Rhode Island.
Thank you, Rishad.
Is the sound coming through well?
Please type a yes if you could hear us both.
Yeah.
Very well. All right.
Omar, fantastic. Meshel, fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
So why don't we over to you, Noor. We can get underway.
All right. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone joining and more to join, and welcome to the Bakkah and in conjunction with the International Institute of Business Analysis webinar today. The topic is about introducing a career in business analysis. How do you get into this profession, into this growing profession? And joining us today, from our partner side, Mr. Keith Ellis. He's the Chief Engagement and Growth Officer of the International Institute of Business Analysis. So hello, Keith.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
So the topic today is very rich, and without further ado, we wanted to start with a brief about Bakkah. We are learning and development enthusiasts. We are situated and located in Saudi Arabia, and we provide learning solutions to various customers and clients, both organizations and individuals in various disciplines. So in project management, in HR, in business analysis, and various other disciplines, we have been working in this field for a number of decades now, and we have a growing experience working with professionals from various areas and developing the standards and the content for learning. So this is a brief about Bakkah. About our partners. We work with valuable partners across the globe in providing best practice-based learning solutions that are very relevant and needed in the marketplace to upskill employees' capabilities, to improve the bottom line for organizations. We work through several layers by providing these solutions based on best practices. And in summary, in terms of our clients, we have been working with several hundred clients, both from the organizations as private sector, government, and nonprofit. And all our work so far has been a success story. And we are very proud of achieving the benefits desired for these organizations. And we built the capabilities of over 20,000 people so far. So in terms of numbers, which are speaking louder than words, our numbers so far has been growing very well. In terms of our client base, our rapport, the success stories that we have. And we are very proud to work with more and more in order to achieve the capabilities growth that everybody aspires for. So this is a summary brief about Bakkah. And today, I'd like to announce this opportunity as well to mention that we have a special offer for everybody in attendance. This special offer is about providing students with the opportunity to obtain the ECBA course. We have a 50% discount, a promo code ECBA50 that you could claim and distribute to your colleagues and friends that they can benefit from this opportunity. So without further ado, I would like to hand over the mic to Mr. Keith Ellis. So Mr. Keith.
Thank you, Noor. I appreciate that introduction. And I want to reinforce just how valued your organization is as a partner of IIBA and working to build skills in the kingdom. I know that you've been tremendously involved with the chapter and developing really that ecosystem, because it's so much more than training and development. It's really the care in the quality of the instruction that brings the results that people are looking for. And I know you're very valued in your ratings are so high. So let's talk about this career of business analysis. And I'm here today because I've been invited. I've been invited by Noir and their team to really talk about what this is all about. Why is this valued? Why is this career something that really differentiates people? And I think maybe I can be that story about what it's all about, because I started my world as a business analyst professional. That's where I come from. And I'm Chief Engagement and Growth Officer for a global multinational today. So when I think about at Root, the skills that I bring forward as a professional, those skills that I use day in and day out in my world, and I think about what Noir has as his own skills as an executive, it's that business acumen. It's that understanding and making structured decisions, understanding how to break those decisions down and use sound judgment. It's about knowing how to focus on value and knowing how to make change. And at Root, that is what business analysis is truly all about. That's the beginning of a profession for so many people. But it's also, what I'll do is I can tell some stories along the way as we go into this, and knowing who I am and what I've been involved in. Obviously, I'm well researched in the profession and have been around the profession for a long time. And I can speak to, organizations and what they're doing. And I'm sure, Noir, when you think about your own doing needs analysis for clients, I'm thinking that you're probably going to talk and tell stories very much in alignment with business analysis and how business analysis helps you do that, And I'll come back to that because I know when you are rolling out training, the approaches that your organization take in doing that needs analysis up front are so critical. So why don't I'll get you to tell some stories in there as we go into talking a little further about different organizations and what they do. For those of you who are newer to the International Institute of Business Analysis, we advocate for the profession of business analysis. We're that global setter of the standard, and we orchestrate the community in setting that standard. And it's written down in the Bakkah guide. It's a publication that really talks about the main foundational techniques, the competencies, the tasks of business analysis that people need to know. But so much of what we do is about building communities and that vibrant community to support the practice of business analysis. But it's also from a personal perspective, it's about each of you having and being able to showcase your skills to employers, to be able to say, yes, I have that certification. I've gone through that high stakes examination. And maybe some of you had to sweat hard to go get it and work hard to go get it, but you can show that you have those underlying skills. When we think about building communities, we have 120 chapters in 40 countries around the world. Being a member of IIBA means that you're a member of all of those chapters. And we have 600 of the largest corporate academic and education partners like Noir's organization, working together with us, and we're powered by 1,300 volunteers. Noir, I know that that you're so involved with our chapter community in the kingdom. Maybe you've got a story in there that you can talk about in terms of the importance of that to somebody's learning journey.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Keith, very much for this introduction. In terms of our efforts in working with the community, as we mentioned, we are enthusiasts when it comes to learning and development. So we would like to work always with people. We are people-centric. So working with the communities, the community thought leaders, working with the chapters, etc., to promote disciplines that adds value to people is what we'd like to do. Working with the chapter in Saudi Arabia is basically something that we have recently started. It's going very well. We're working together now to start publicizing, promoting more knowledge-based sessions, workshops, basically for knowledge transfer, to know more about what business analysis is. Because as you know, Keith, there's a lot of underlying misconceptions. People might not know more about business analysis. Maybe they think it's more related to IT. So I think the first step we would like to do is to promote what the discipline really is. So we would like to work with the community in that regard. And primarily, we are working with the chapter in Saudi Arabia for this. And we are also collaborating with chapters across the globe globe, as you rightfully mentioned. Being a partner with the IIBA means we are partners. We have partners across the globe, and that's how we see it. And our clients as well, and the people we work with, we look at them as our partners as well.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. And learning is not just in the classroom. It really begins there for so many people, but it's about building a professional career. It's about building
Absolutely.
your journey, right? So let's talk about the learning objectives. Everybody on the call, this is about you. This is not about me. This is about what you want to accomplish. So please ask your questions as we go. I will answer them. If I don't get to it during the session, because we have 300 people on the line today, I will answer it afterwards, or we'll pick it up and make sure that we email you the answers. So let's talk about what is business analysis. We'll talk about the profession. Why is this in such demand? I know that, you know, Bakkah and Noir have done a tremendous amount in the kingdom to build demand for the profession, but it is one of the hottest areas right now globally. It is number 6 on LinkedIn Learning in terms of the speed and pace and growth and the number of courses being taken out there. And then it's really answering that curve. How do you get into the profession? Can you make that breakthrough in your career through ECBA and other things? And I want you all to reflect and just take a minute and think about how much change is going on in the world. Would you agree with me if I say that there's just a tremendous amount of change going on right now in business and globally in terms of the way organizations come to market? Just use the Q&A area. Let's make a little bit of interaction happen. Yes, thank you. There we go. I agree. I appreciate at least one person coming in and saying, yes, they agree. That's fantastic. So look, what I'm going to say is that this chart here says we haven't seen anything yet. 76% of organizations that we recently talked to said they are actively working to increase the pace with which organizations sense and respond to change. That means that we're moving faster. The economy will continue to move faster and faster and faster. The ability of companies to change needs to get better and better and better. And guess what we do as a profession? As a profession, we're all about enabling change. That's really where it comes from. And when you think about the role, organizations that are really good at enabling change, sensing and responding to change out there, they're nimble. They are able to see what's happening, adjust, understand what's valuable for their customers, and roll that out into the enterprise. They tend to have business analysis professionals in enabler or leader roles. They're driving or enabling the change within the enterprise. And you see that there's this direct linear relationship between the two. Organizations that are poor at sensing and responding to change tend to have very poor business analysis capacity. Organizations that are extremely good at this tend to have extremely strong business analysis capacity. And you'll see the variability of it in organizations today, but this is really telling to just how foundationally important business analysis is as a career. So let's define what it is, okay? Business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. Now that's a mouthful, okay? What are we really talking about in there? We're really talking about helping an executive who says, I want to do this. This is my strategy. This is where I want us to go. But there's so much action and activity that has to happen between that statement and being able to implement and realize value that you need business analysis professionals who can say, how do I orchestrate that? How do I enable that vision? How do I enable people to do their best work in realizing that vision? How do I focus on what aspect of that vision delivers the most value so that that executive can be successful, so that our team as a whole can be successful? It is about enabling, defining those needs in a way that people understand. And increasingly, as you know, decision-making is very collaborative. How much more complicated is it to bring people to consensus? How many of you here have that evening that you're going together with friends to go out for dinner? How many of you here have had every one of those friends look at each other and say, I don't know, where do you want to go? I don't know, where do you want to go, right? Now imagine how difficult sometimes and frustrating that conversation is about even where you want to go, something so simple and not complicated. Now, think about in business where you've got very complex decisions. You've got that collaboration amongst colleagues trying to figure out how to make this thing go. Imagine having those skills to bring people very quickly to consensus, to drive toward what is valuable for all of us in this moment and achieve a result that's valuable. That's what business analysis is really all about. So when you think about how it defines and supports systemic change, I want to use some fairly specific examples. There are 8 areas in here that are above and beyond, but this is kind of the future direction of where business analysis is going as we think about it. It's this need to be able to assess strategic alignment to the whole. So sometimes in business, you're doing things and you can have a business being busy, right? Really, really busy. And I'm not sure how many of you today are just super busy in the roles that you're in. And it could be that you're extremely productive, but is the organization focused in on doing the right things? And that's really what assess strategic alignment to the whole is all about. How do we, when we're doing projects inside or outside of project work, enable and focus in on doing the right things? How do we end projects that are not valuable? How do I help that executive isolate and break down, or that team of people working on a problem? How do I have the skills to isolate and break down that big problem into smaller solvable pieces so that we can help people take action and make some decisions quickly on what needs to happen? That is an entire skill set, just like it's an entire skill set around respectfully challenging to grow. Sometimes people are not very good at this. You can't look at a developer and say, what do you think, and expect them to participate around the table. You need those skills to facilitate and collaborate. You need those skills to define what is both valuable and viable and valuable, because so often when you look at functionality, sometimes that functionality is not aligned to the real value stream of what a customer needs. And it's a skill set to uncover and unpack what is the value that a customer truly needs from a supplier. These are all core business analysis capabilities and skills that they're brought to the enterprise. And by executing on some of these pieces, you can see how valuable that is to the enterprise. When decisions are so interconnected, they're complicated, they need thought, they need good business acumen brought to the table, good decision making brought to the table. And it's not that you can be obnoxious about it and say, I'm the one who can help with this. You're the one who people become increasingly turning to help, to bring people to the table, because they know that you have those skills to be able to somehow magically work that room and bring people to consensus, but also you have the ear of the executive so that you know how to get things done. That is the essence of business analysis in organizations. And when we look at areas, and people will think business data analytics, oh no, that's a data science thing. It's not. When you look at complex technologies, and this one happens to be the largest beer manufacturer in the world, and it's the global VP ethics and compliance. And one of the funniest quotes is, we manufacture a lot of beer. You'd be surprised how many truckloads of it go missing in any given month. I guess we wouldn't want a truckload of beer. I don't know. But anyway, what he's saying is the role of business analysis is critical. Without it, you see your systems quickly spin out of control. But what he's talking about here is business data analytics. He's talking about very complex systems. And people think, oh, that's data science. Oh, that's your technical guys. It's not. No amount of whiz-bang technology, no amount of data science will fix asking and answering the wrong question. Miss getting value to the business, and what happens? Your systems spin out of control. Your entire process goes out of control. And so what their organization did is they shifted all the ways of work, and they put a business analyst in as part of the team, and they made that person accountable for output. Why? because that person is there to understand what is needful and separate need from want from valuable. What is it that creates value to this company? And that's what the business analysis professional specializes in accomplishing. And that's critical to corporate journeys. And some organizations have really not made this shift to really focus in on how the business analysis professional can create the outcomes. Now, I'm going to describe what people do in business analysis, in the role and the key tasks. And then I'm going to show you that Noir is also a deep business analyst, because he's going to talk about how he uses the idea of defining needs and requirements in his role every day when he's working with customers. And we'll just look at how this connects for so many different types of roles across the organization. Business analysis is about defining needs, recommending solutions, understanding what delivers value for the organization, enabling change. Noir, does that check every single thing that you do for organizations?
Absolutely.
That's your set of things that you provide, right?
Yep.
And so if I'm thinking about how to execute and the tasks and execution, I'm going to bet that you do a lot of work up front in terms of how you do your business analysis planning, and you do your monitoring, you figure out how you're going to work. You're going to basically set up your program of planning. Now, elicitation and collaboration here, basically, they're big words, but what they mean is you have to engage your stakeholders. You have to ask good questions. You have to know how to pull out information. It's like being an investigative reporter, right?
Yeah.
How do I engage them and bring that in? So I'm betting Noir is an expert when he's working with big companies about being that investigative reporter to say, what do you really need to do, right? How do we really need to deploy this capability? Is that a true statement, Noir?
Absolutely. And in that regards, most of the time we discover that there are underlying or emergent requirements, things that they didn't know, they didn't account for. Exactly. And basically, it's something that all organizations have in common. They want someone to guide them through in the journey.
Exactly. And so, and then when he goes and figures all these things out, when he creates a proposal, he's going to have to say, here are my items that I'm listing, that I'm doing. And oh, by the way, this is how it fits your needs. This is what you said you needed. And here's what I'm doing and how it aligns to what you need. And I'm betting that all your proposals are structured roughly that way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's about when an executive tells you or you talk about needs, you have to trace that set of needs through to conclusion, whether you're in a account management role and you're working together with your customers, but how much more important when you're really working across large enterprises and you're working to bring solutions and value in some part of the kingdom. And then you do the strategy analysis. You say, how do I determine where I am and how I'm going to get to where I go? And then you determine your analysis, design, and definition. I'm betting in here things like, how are you going to use your LMS? Like when we talk about today, we're a little bit more B2C, or a little bit more consumer oriented in our conversation. But when you're working with big organizations, you've got your LMS and you're trying to integrate that into the way they work, right? Like these are big solution requirement ideas. Absolutely. How do you approach that in your world, Noir?
Well, that's here is where actually the business analysis strength comes into play, because primarily we did not know that most of what the activities we do in regards to managing the LMS, understanding the customer needs, a lot of it were part and parcel of business analysis. So the moment we started adapting the approaches as per the best practice, we started to understand that there are long-term objectives, short-term objectives, short-term gains, what the organization looks at as a value. They might be looking at something short-term and the focus is there. So integration might take a long time between, for example, our learning management systems and theirs versus, for example, developing something new or vice versa. So here is where it comes into play. Working with organizations that are large, is very difficult when it comes to managing the expectations of the stakeholders. So you have several, let's say, departments, IT, you have a PMO, you have the HR and the learning and development department. Each has their own needs, their own expectations. Working with in this kind of environment, you need to put everybody together and to put them in a way that they collaborate with each other, so that the overall objectives and putting the priorities in order, overall objectives will be accomplished. And
Exactly.
this is where we come into play. So the learning management system, the technology requirement is one component, and the learning needs, on the other hand, is another component. Both are time consuming, but both can be done working collaboratively with stakeholders.
Well, and both of these are critical. So when you think about business analysis as a set of skills and the solutions that have to come out of that, what Nora is talking about is how to apply those skills every day in industry. And whether you're in an account management role, whether you're executing, whether you're inside the company, it's about helping organizations figure out how to get things done and do it with value. And that's really the heart of executing as an executive or professional. Now, Yosef, you've asked a brilliant question, and I want to make sure any questions that are coming through, I'm getting a chance. When did business analysis depart from the computer science and M&A to the broad role you're describing? That's a great question. In fact, it's been like this for the last 5-10 years. And really the signaling of it, when we moved from our version 2 Babcock to the version 3 Babcock, we went from that more bridge role, which tends to be input related, more about, business analysis is about capturing needs and et cetera, to more of an outcome orientation, which is really very pervasive in industry today as people are moving to what is the outcome of business analysis? It's about enabling change in industry. And it's shifted dramatically. Now, not every company's made that shift. There's no shortage of people who are here to, say, capture a use case or capture a user story, do documentation, these other kinds of things. And that's often a more junior role. But when you take on the more senior roles, it's very much what is the outcome? It's very conceptual, it's very contextual engagement with organizations. There's another one. Was there a specific shift in the literature or some industry event? So a lot of it has come down to, there's been a lot of different shifts generally in industry from input thinking to output thinking. When you go to a bank and you talk to the teller, if you train that teller to, okay, when somebody comes in, you need to smile, in this way, you need to greet them, you need to ask them how their day is. And that's very input thinking. You're telling them every step along the way. How good a customer experience to get? It's pretty lousy, right? Because you just get annoyed, you show up, you can't prescribe all the inputs for every action. It doesn't make sense. The same things happen in business analysis. There was an over-rotation 15 years ago to requirements document, requirements spec being done in a very specific way. That's input thinking. It's really the output that matters. It's how does this enable the change within the system environment? How does this enable the change to be instantiated? And it's just a tremendously valuable skill set. So when you think about what this means from a competency perspective, the competencies themselves are really related to all these things. It's critical thinking and problem solving. It's about business knowledge. It's about communication skills. Very, very, very strong communication skills. How many people here you've been involved in activities and you're finding that when you're describing something, it goes a little sideways on it. People don't understand what you're talking about. And a lot of times that happens, but for business analysis professionals, it's about building up that skill set of being able to collaborate, building up the techniques that enable you to collaborate effectively, to depersonalize very complicated, difficult conversations, and then bring those interaction skills, those facilitation leadership skills to help people center in on certain tools and technologies. And you will build, you're never going to be a technologist. Your goal is not to learn how to program. Your goal is to learn how to communicate with the stakeholders, whether in technology or in business or in finance or some other part of the organization. Build that set of skills so you know how to communicate need in a way that they will understand. And then build those behavioral competencies like accountability and trustworthiness so that they know they can turn to you to be that arbitrator of value, that when you say something like this is valuable, people understand that there's good thought and understanding behind it. And when you look at where business analysis is coming from, there's just such tremendous demand. Noir, I know you've been doing a lot of work building demand in the kingdom for business analysis. Maybe just a quick story in that particular one and some of the work
Yeah.
you've been doing.
Well, it's a long journey. When we started marketing, or let's say approaching business analysis in a sense, we wanted to understand it ourselves because, as you know, you cannot promote something you don't understand. But what we noticed is that in the market there was a need, but the need was underlying. The moment that people understood what business analysis is about, what the certification paths are, what is the benefits for it, from it for their careers, we noticed that there was a surge, a growth in comparison to other disciplines. For instance, in the past 2 years, we had 64% growth only for business analysis certifications products compared to other products. And that's a significant number when you look at the reality and the need of the market. So when we talk about the market is in need, and the certification paths today are relevant for everyone to take.
Yeah, it is tremendous. It is one of the hottest in-demand skills right now. And people don't realize just how much it impacts other career movement. And so this is a great chart that speaks a little bit to the question Joseph answered. And then Mohammed, you had asked the question on what other careers are this related to? And so business analysis sometimes is deployed in information technology, but increasingly outside that context. It could be in a business process management space, it could be directly inside a project management office inside that particular layering of the organization, or increasingly when you're moving into an agile environment, you're going into product ownership or change management or customer experience management layers. Those ones require more specialization. So when you think about product ownership, we have a CPOA because there's a specific certification designation in that area. Some of these are very specialized, like data analytics, data management. Those tied to our certification in certified business data analytics, because you have to be bringing a certain specialty skill outside the core understanding of how to do business analysis. They're very related, but we want people to be extremely successful in however they're being deployed. And you see this widening of the deployment of the business analysis professional, like cybersecurity is another one where you see increasingly large number of BA business analysis professionals being deployed. But over 80% report that their senior leaders understand the role and value of business analysis. And that's radically shifted. And that's one of the underlying drivers of demand is people have moved away a little bit from the role maybe 5 years ago. It's completely swung the other way. And if anything, in places like Australia, people are paying outrageous amounts. I saw one place where there was like 300,000 on offer for somebody. It was insane. But you see these kinds of things happening. And so what's happening in the role right now is it's in demand, and it really is a foundational career move. Because when you think about business analysis, it takes you in so many directions. It's that raw understanding and business acumen layers, communication layers, that's really driving this need to say, I understand strategic thinking, I understand how to be strategic, I understand how to visualize that future state, and I understand how to collaborate across the organization to enable that future state. That is tremendously valuable within organizations generally. So as a foundation skill, you'll see that it's moving into accounting and HR and all of these other kinds of foundational areas because it is so critical. It really does set that foundation stage for people thinking about it. But the raw numbers, and everybody here probably wants to see this. Now, I have some for the kingdom. I think it's in around 68,000 US, but that's probably underrepresenting the true salary that's happening in the kingdom today, because that will be skewed more to the lower end, the ECBA numbers. But in the US, to give you some sense of the perspective, when you look at the median, which is, average will tend to be very skewed up because there's just so much wealth, right? So many wealthy people versus what the majority of people are. The majority of people in the US are making about 44,000 US. A computer programmer is making about 93,000. The average business analysis professional is making 96,000, okay? Now your CBAPs, the people at the top end of that chain make a lot more than that. Okay. So you can kind of get a sense that, you're probably in that 117% more than what your median person is making. It's a valued career, right? It's not an inexpensive skill. In fact, when you compare it to, say, an accountant or computer programmer, but the big thing that's the takeaway here, it's how much the growth, right? All of the related professions, and this is from the data. I don't know what a top executive is. I was very surprised to find that the U.S. Labor Bureau has top executive at 98,000. Okay, that's good. But the growth rate there is only 8%. Okay, that was the humorous part. When you look at business analysis, the old world of computer systems analyst is 7%. It's still making a lot, but it's 7% growth. What's surging the growth is this management analyst layer, operations research analyst, where that's really drilling into the processes and process understanding and understanding how to enable change in those processes. That's that operations research analyst, a more junior role, but it's a really important one. And then the information security analyst, obviously a very, very high in demand, hot role right now, also driven off business analysis. Does this help people? So think of it, these are roles that you may understand in the kingdom, right? You know roughly what they might be making. Think of this as giving you a little bit of a benchmark as to where it might fit within the kingdom itself. And it depends employer by employer. But there's a lot of demand right now generally. And when you look at your professional journey, a lot of that will start with a learning partner like Bakkah, who's working together with you, and they're valued. They know how to get you across that goal line of getting your certification. Because if you're new to the community, the first thing they'll look for is your job experience. The second thing they'll look for is, where are you coming from a commitment to this profession? Have you taken the time to go get your certification so that you are showing that commitment to the profession and therefore get your foot in the door? I mean, that's critical. In any journey, you've got to have a starting point, and we make it easier for you by having an ECBA as the beginning of that journey. And there's a great article here in CIO magazine. It's just like literally, less than a year old, and it's about, is the ECBA worth it? And they're very similar kinds of themes to what I talked about, which is, if you're just starting in your journey as an analyst and you don't have that high power college degree, think about an ECBA. It's a great way to show your ambition, your seriousness, but it also is about being part of IBA and really driving your relationship in the chapter, right? You could be coming from 3 or 4 different places. Like, a lot of times business analysis professionals are people who are in the business. They want to upskill. You might be in HR, you might feel stuck in another career, but you're a subject expert. And by taking this training, you end up being able to move from where you were and where you're stuck into something that is a longer term professional career and sets the stage potentially. Not everybody wants to go on and be an executive, but it sets that stage for where you could go in the future. Think about being a data analyst or a tester or support desk staff, and you know how the system works. You know how the technology works within that organization. Look to upgrade, look to become a business analysis professional, at least the beginnings of that, because you're now setting that foundation to take your career to that next level. There's only so high you can go in those kinds of roles. You glass ceiling yourself. Look at this as the next layer. Recent grads, business school students, if you're early in your professional journey, I cannot underscore enough how critical the basic training is. There is a language in this profession. There is a way of speaking that you need to know, you need to understand in detail. We have thousands of people being trained right now in the big consulting companies, and they drive the early people through ECBA. They drive them hard to get there, and if they don't pass, they fire them. That's basically the answer. And so in this case here, when you look at ECBA as a starting point, it's not only a beginning of your professional journey, but think about how critical that chapter relationship is to you, and those relationships that you need to build. And that's what Bakkah will tell you is, go be a member, Get your membership, become part of IBA, because that's where your peers are. That's how you're going to build your overall journey, is connecting into the chapter, going to the chapter events, becoming part of the profession, showing your commitment to the profession. People aren't going to hire you tomorrow, but they will begin to understand your skills, particularly if you're a student trying to create a pathway to further education. Your journey does and also starts by being a member. Know what you get, go to iba.org, look at the member benefits, okay? The reason why this is so critical is because you're taking a moment for yourself to know your professional journey. That's what this is about. This is about creating long-term careers. It's about creating a long-term foundation for yourself. And that foundation is a network, it is a profession, it is a certification, and it is a certain baseline of training that supports you as a professional in this career. You need all four of those to take you forward. It's not about magically, you get your ACBA and you now all of a sudden in a senior role. No, you need your coaches, your mentors, your professional development journey around you. You need to surround yourself with that team. And people in our profession are very good at helping out, because that's how we're wired, right? We're very good at that because that's how we're wired. Recognize that as you become part of IBA, this is your chapter. This is your community, your network, those people that you will value because they will be your friends. That's your group. Those are your peers. It's you saying, these are my peeps, right? To be slang a little bit. But think about this as your professional journey and being welcomed into a community, because you do have your certification, you do have those basics of language, but participating in global events or participating in your local events or participating in your chapter is what gets people noticed. And especially now that it's moved back to more in person, a lot of times the recruiters are there and they want to meet people. And a lot of times they're bringing in more junior people, these kinds of things. So why is it so important to get certified? As I've said, there is a recognition moment for everybody. And this is research from our membership, where people say, this is who I am. This is what I do. And this is how I show my skills as a professional. I get certified. That's why you do it. At root, it is an emotional connection to a profession, to showcase your skills. Yeah, you can pick up the skills if for some reason you manage to get hired, right? Not everybody out there who's a business analysis professional is certified, but it does bring together that professional community, and it showcases that you're a professional in that community. Now, there's a lot of other advantages, right? It's that confidence that you will bring value, right? And that's what you need day in and day out. If you're standing in front of a crowd and you're facilitating that room, you better know what you're doing, right? You need to make sure you have direction. And the Bakkah guide gives you those foundation techniques you need. So you're not making it up on the fly. You want to make sure you're delivering value. And by delivering value, that's how you get noticed. And that's where those, 7 or so foundational, not just in the core business analysis skills, which is the square shaped ones, it's the round ones, which are the specialties. Because if you're going into a business data analytics assignment and you've got your ECBA, you're a member of IBA, that guide is there. Go read it. The CBDA guide, the business data analytics guide, it's there. Go read it. You're a member. You have it already. Go read it. Why? Because it will help you in that assignment. It will help you understand how to uncover, unpack value in that assignment. Take whatever number of hours you need to go through and read so you understand what to do. But it's about higher career satisfaction when certified. 45% higher. That's not a small number, right?
Yeah.
It's huge. And higher salary. Everybody wants a few more bucks to feed the family. And I think that's critical. But it's the confidence that gets you there. It's the confidence that starts you. And when you do start your career, and I know, Noir, you've gone through and got your certifications, you could probably talk to this better than I can at this point in time. I will point out the ECBA is not an onerous one because it's more memory based. It's really about knowing the language of the profession. 21 hours of professional time to go get it. As you are a more experienced business analysis professional, the number of hours and the work experience rises considerably so that people do have much higher qualifications. You go ECBA, CCBA, CBAP, right? And then you can really showcase that you've got those skills for the employer. Did you want to comment on this one briefly? I was thinking that I might really bring you in and you talk to your experiences in writing the exam.
Actually, I think we have a question from Muad Sayari.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, he's asking, is business analysis tied strongly to innovation? If yes, how so?
It is very strongly, because when you think about innovation, it's about you're innovating for the purpose of what? Bringing it to market, making change, enabling this in enterprise. But frankly, innovation is driven by what's valuable to a customer. And that underlying skill is very strongly business analysis, really uncovering and unpacking value chains for the customer and very clearly understanding and in a structured way approaching how do I look at that problem of ideation. So this is a great question because it's very much related to that. So yes. Do you want to talk briefly to Noir, the examination itself and what it's all about?
Well, thank you. And I think the examination was straightforward. I think the highlight that I want to mention to the people today is that don't be afraid of taking the exam. It's a knowledge-based exam. You don't really require to memorize. You need to understand, because that's the first step you need to take in your career as a business analyst, or if you're interested to take this path. So the exam is straightforward, 50 questions. There's no trick questions. It's direct. You just need to answer based on your understanding. And I passed it for my first attempt. So don't be afraid.
That's good. And in fact, it's really the role of Bakkah and organizations like yourselves to help people get through exam preparation, the training layers, the readiness assessment, the test banks that you go through. All of that is part of the experience. And frankly, if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be valuable, right? So you do have to go through a lot of work to get there. When you get there, it's that reward, that sense of accomplishment that you've achieved, that you've done something that not as many people can do. And that's important generally in your career, because it's that building of confidence that at least at this level of ECBA, you know the language of the business.
Yeah.
Let's continue and just talk about, basically one last closing thought. Malf and Yusuf, this really speaks to some of your questions. How has this world shifted and what's changed? Because the role of the business analysis professional, if I go back early in my career 20 years ago, it was a very different role than what it is today, right? It today is so much about shaping the practice to achieve better enterprise outcomes. It's about being outcome focused. It's about enabling vision and an achievement. And I want you to think about it as enabling every person to do more, because the real win, so much of the win as a business analysis professional, is making sure that everybody around that table, all your peers, are each individually so much more successful, right? That you're there not only to enable the company to realize its goals, but you're there for everybody else's outcome as well, to enable them to participate as equals, to be heard, to drive gains in a much more systemic way. And all of these things are critical. Now, there's a question here on the project. Which phase of the project you provide the most value and you want a chance to shine the most? So it's a great question. And I'm going to say about half of business analysis work today is actually not in the project context. It's actually outside the project context. And it's rising more and more all the time. And in fact, it's going to be the vast majority as you go forward. And I'm going to suggest that probably the when you think about the earliest value, it's really value is distributed along the way. Like it used to be in waterfall, like the projects where the analysis was heavy up front. That's where the business analysis tended to be, and then you kind of flow it forward from there. Today's world is a little bit more iterative than that, and so you have to upfront be very focused in on, are we doing the right thing? What is the value, and are we asking and answering the right question? Are we oriented on something that truly is valuable to the enterprise? That's always going to be true, and that's always going to be a very big, heavy lift. How do I unpack these decisions? How do I enable these decisions to be made in a much more systemic way? But I'm going to suggest that because business analysis is so outcome oriented today, because it's so focused on have we delivered the outcomes that we expected, there's this massive movement to business analysis to being across the value stream and even having a much stronger role at the edge or end of that project cycle, or understanding as that project is moving, are we continuing to focus on value the way we need to focus on value delivery? It's a great question. I really like that particular one. But it is about better enterprise outcomes. It really has shifted to that from a professional journey perspective. Noir, can I get you to talk about this wonderful offer that you're making today?
Thank you. Actually, at the beginning, we mentioned that we have a special offer for today, for people in attendance today, that you could benefit from. By starting your path in business analysis, you can get an opportunity today to have a 50% discount for the ECBA course, whichever modality you'd like to take it, whether it's live, online, or self-paced, by using this promo code. So please take advantage of this offer, take it over, and forward it to your friends or whoever you know might be interested.
It's fantastic. I really like that. And so what I want to do is also just give us a great opportunity to answer questions for people who have them. And I'll just continue to talk as they come in. I see one related to the slides. Noir, are you sending the slides out to all of the participants today?
Absolutely. We will be sending the slides out. And please, at this session, in terms of your questions, please feel free to ask your questions. If we didn't get the chance to answer it during the session, we will be emailing all the answers for all the questions that you ask after the session.
So what should you learn, and what are the skills to improve and be good as a BA? So I think when you think about the core skills, Amgad, you need to really think about going into the business analysis body of knowledge, and the core understanding is all written out, right? In terms of what are the skills, what are the tasks, what are the competencies associated with this? And then you need to think about building and applying those to your role, right? And so from my perspective, that's your starting point. So think about, go become a member of IBA or connect with Noir and his team to take you through the ECBA training. Go in and learn the Bakkah Guide, which is the body of knowledge for the business analysis professionals. And it's got a number of different sections. The first are the tasks. The first is really the definition of what business analysis is and what it's all about. So you know how it fits. And then there's a way of thinking called the Bakkah. And that model or way of thinking kind of drives your mentality, the way you're almost programming your mind to approach things. And then you have to look at the tasks, meaning what tasks am I performing? And there's not really sequencing to it as much anymore, but there's a logic to the way you approach it, to approach the problem decomposition. And then there's a lot of techniques that are available. And those techniques are telling you, well, what to do in different circumstances. And so there's a lot of pieces to the way you'd approach it. But hopefully that's a good assistance for you to think about what skills. That's why the Bakkah Guide exists, is to really codify that for you. Great question.
Thank you, Amjad.
Yeah.
Please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. We are running out of time because we have about 5 minutes remaining. So this is an opportunity for everyone to participate.
So depends as a user, I don't know your name, but how major is the facilitation skill to have as a BA, a business analysis professional? What is the criteria that determines how good my facilitation skill is? So facilitation skills are pretty critical, but different business analysis professionals perform in different roles, right? And so to me, I think you have to measure, so let's say you're in business data analytics. You may not need as strong a facilitation skill. It is critical. Like in my old world, in my old company, we had a person in the front of the room and we had a person who was documenter in the back of the room. So a senior person and a junior person, and we were facilitating 8 hours a day. And we had a very strong pathway of doing it. So you put me in the front of the room right now, I don't care what we're talking about, I'm good. Let's go. Okay, it's not a problem for me. You build it, just it's like muscle memory. Okay, and you build it. You get very strong at it, and that's really experience in the front of the room. That experience at the front of the room is driven by the techniques that you're using, and really making sure you can fall back on those techniques and have somebody who's your coach mentor as you go forward. The criteria that matters is really about, are you able to contextually engage and move that team forward? And that's about value. Are you bringing value in the moment? That's what facilitation skill is all about. Would that team say, we had a good session, I'm moving it forward? You may even be in a situation where they're going in a different direction. I had to facilitate board meetings as the chairman of the board because we thought we were going this way and all of a sudden it took a right turn in the conversation. And now I'm facilitating a strategy conversation at the board level. But those skills, they stick with you forever. Can we have a CBAP certificates directly without having the, yes, you can. What you need to think about in this one, and Ruva, this is a great question. Think about for yourself, if you're further in your journey and you're reinforcing that you're further in your journey, you've got certain skills, you can, with the team, with Noir's team, go direct to CBAP and graduate that. We have many people who started their certification journey there. It's much easier if you start, studying at the ECBA level and graduate up. Mohammed, you started studying for ECBA and you've done your PMP previously. So if you're a PMP certified person and you're really working into the business analysis community, yes, ECBA is important because the positioning of the skills inside the PMBOK are very, very project centric, and you need to break that mentality. So approach the ECBA as an indoctrination into thinking outside the project context. It's really critical, and you may find it simple to get your ECBA, but break out of the project context because business analysis is not bounded by project. But I would strongly encourage you to think about two others, okay? The one of them is the Guide to Business Data Analytics and the Business Data Analytics Certification, CBDA, because so much motion right now in that area. The dollars available to people are extraordinary. It's a very interesting certification. It'll tie well to your skills. It'll develop you as a project manager. The other one is the Guide to Product Ownership Analysis. And that's another certification. It's really product owner related. You see, PMP, unfortunately, it's really, there's a large motion away from project-centric thinking. And so you want to move more agile, AAC or product owner analysis. And product owner analysis is really that hybrid that you could use as a project manager to break into that product owner world. And it may be much more familiar with you or for you than, say, traditional agile training, which probably is not going to fit as well, but it's very, very good. Okay, so Mohammed, those two is what I would recommend. As an ITBA, this is Omar.
We have a question from Alanud actually earlier. What is the difference between business analyst and system analyst?
So that's a great question. And so often it depends on the company, because a lot of times the company will call them system analyst versus business analyst, and it just may be the same thing in a different role. I've always felt that the system analyst tends to be much more inside the technology IT department as a role, much more in related to the setting of requirements prior to development, when you're in the maintenance mode, right? When you're dealing with maintenance and systems upgrades and things like that, there has to be somebody who's in there doing that kind of work. That tends to be a little bit in my bias, but many different organizations will call them different things, right? And so, there's just going to be differences in terms of the way the organization. So sometimes they call them business partners, sometimes they call them business analysis professionals, sometimes they call them business analysts, sometimes they call them, like there's lots of different names for a business analysis professional. Hopefully that answers your question. And then Omar, as an IT BA, most of my problems come from resistance to change from the stakeholders. Do you think a good BA needs to understand change management to deliver our messages to better the stake? Yeah, I agree with you, and you're on the ITBA. So stakeholders, the personalities of companies, that's always going to be a challenge. It doesn't matter what company, what size. I'm an executive, and many of my challenges are working across the organization to see if I can get alignment. And so that problem doesn't go away. It doesn't matter what your role is. But as an IT business analysis professional, Omar, I think you're way better equipped. And I want you to think about the skills of a developer, for example, how frustrated they would be because they don't have the quality of skills that you have to be able to answer some of these questions that you bring to the table. So, and the approach that you have, you do need to understand change management. You do need to understand what is reasonable in change, that your change plan needs to be reasoned and bound in reality. And if you don't do that, it's hard to recommend solutions that deliver value to your stakeholder community. It is an important aspect of what you're talking about. It depends on your seniority level, right? It's part of your journey, not so much at the ECBA level, but certainly as you're moving towards CBAP. These things and what's reasonable, important, and viable to the business becomes so much more relevant, so much more important to your own professional journey. But it's about, I think the future of business analysis is so much more about helping people to navigate uncertainty. And what you're talking about here really speaks to that, Omar. It's a great question to ask, because so much of our future is about helping organizations navigate uncertainty. Noir, I think my time is up. I don't want to go too much overtime since people are late at night. I want to thank everybody for participating in the session. And I'll turn it back over to you in a second. I want to wish everybody great success in your journey. Noir?
Thank you very much for the wonderful session, Mr. Keith. And thank you to everyone in attendance today. There's a lot of questions, I'm sure, from everybody. However, unfortunately, we're out of time. However, the communication channels will not be closed. It will be still open. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email them directly to the team. They will drop you the email address here. You can email your questions. We will be providing the answers to everybody after the session, and also we will share the slides with everyone to have it as a reference. And in the end, thank you again for everybody in attendance. Special thanks to Mr. Keith today for the wonderful and enriching session.
Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you enjoyed it so much. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.